Hello, world. You're listening to Eleanor Wagner's Strange and Scary World, here on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, where we're always creeping it real. I'm your host, Eleanor Wagner. In February of 2019, I formed a paranormal investigation team primarily comprised of women. I called it the Lady Ghostbusters. Since then, the team has grown to include a team of 20 women and men. On today's program, I'll be interviewing a Lady Ghostbuster team member as part of the Lady Ghostbuster Series. On each episode, you'll meet a team member and get to know them personally, what their background is, what drives them, and what led them to the world of the paranormal. Let's give a warm welcome to today's guest, Tera Fansler. Welcome, Tera.
Hello, and thank you.
I know that we connected here and there over social media on comment lines of conversation, but do you recall the very first time we actually spoke?
Yeah, through Jason Stanton. I was supposed to join you guys for a investigation, and I never seemed to get around to getting there.
The schedules never worked out, huh? Actually, I don't even think Jason ever ended up coming to any of the investigations.
Oh, no.
All talk, but no action. But we did continue to talk on social media because I know at one point you had mentioned you have a lot of stories to share, and you had mentioned one about your sister-in-law. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
What was that about?
She had passed in 2009, and her cell phone had gone off the day or the next day after she passed, and it was her number calling my phone, and none of us had the cell phone. It was in a box somewhere.
Oh my goodness, did you ever go looking for the phone to check anything out, or?
Yes, after that we did, and there was nothing on her phone.
I do remember after, at one point, I had a post on social media because my friend was visiting from North Carolina and her young son had found a baby squirrel abandoned. It must have fallen out of a tree because they were doing tree work, so it was kind of what we thought might have happened. And I was beside myself. How am I going to take care of a baby squirrel? I didn't know the beginning or the end of it. So I ended up posting on social media, help, does anybody know how to take care of a baby squirrel? And you answered the call and we actually met, right?
Yeah, we finally got to meet.
So you take care of baby squirrels and other animals? What do you do?
I do. If it comes up to where one needs some help for a little while, I take them in and raise them and then release them.
I think I remember you saying something about raccoons at one point, right?
Yes, I've had 3 so far.
Oh, and where do you release them to?
Anywhere away from, a lot of people, so that they can have a long, happy life.
Aw, that is so cool. Well, thank you for doing that. That's really a tough thing because you, I'm sure, fall in love with them, and it must be really hard to say goodbye.
Yeah, you absolutely do.
So along the line, we realized we had the paranormal in common and our love of animals in common. And if I can say, it was the beginning of a beautiful friendship since then, right?
Absolutely.
And I know I've been speaking to you recently about your haunting experiences and stories that you could share with me for Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena Part 3, which is due out sometime next year. We've even discussed your very ghostly active household where you live. Where do you live?
Yes, it is. I live in High Point Country Club.
Okay, in Sussex County.
Yes.
And in your apartment. Now, do you think it's your apartment that's haunted, or do you think it's something that you bring home?
I think I have something that's followed me since a child. Something seems to happen everywhere I live.
So what goes on in your apartment?
Voices, things moving, lights going on and off, the animals staring into corners, making noises, just all kinds of different things.
A while back you spoke about a light fixture. What happened with that again? I can't really remember.
I was sitting in my living room and I was watching TV, and I have a multi-head light in the corner, and I had all of them on, and one of them kept flickering. So I was asking questions, and as I'd ask a question, the light would flicker to the question.
In response.
Yeah. I changed the bulb out, I checked the wiring, everything, and nothing changed it. It kept doing it. So I think somebody was there speaking with me.
That's crazy cool. Once we established our connection, you and I knew that sooner or later you would make it to a Lady Ghostbuster investigation, when you'd be able to sink your teeth into actually finding proof at a location. Since then, you've been on quite a few.
Yes.
So how has that affected your life? What do you think about it?
I love it. I'm glad I found a group of women that are into the same thing I am. It's changed me me to where now I'm not so in on myself.
Introverted?
Yes, I want to be out doing things and going to different places with the team.
All right, because we had spoken about that whole emotional thing, that you, like our Lady Ghostbuster team member, Brittany, you have this fear of large groups and being in social settings.
Yes.
And for people that have difficulty with that, it can be a tough thing to pull yourself out of. And so I'm glad to know that you found something that has enabled you, because you've got such a wonderful personality. You're such a kind heart, and you get along with everybody, and it would be a shame to have all of that fun wasted.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm really glad that you are a part of the team.
Me too.
As I understand it, you've been having experiences, though, for as long as you can remember. Like you just said, you've had something with you since you were a child, but you also say that you use your 5 senses to connect with spirits. And
yes.
what does that mean exactly?
Smell. Like I can smell certain things in areas. They speak to me. I can see them. I have the touch and taste. This is the odd one that not a lot of people have, but I could be driving past somewhere and I can taste whether it be blood or dirt or something, and I'll know something happened in that area. And it's just one of the 5 senses that helps me figure out what's going on.
Well, you can also see things while you're driving. I remember you saying
yes.
That's the sight. So when you're driving, when you see something in a location, or for example, let's just say one time you mentioned that you were just driving and you saw a bunch of Native Americans on property.
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to? Like you could see them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can actually see, like, sometimes it's a picture. Other times I call it, know if the word's correct, but like a ticker tape. Like I see it go through one side of my face, like my head, and comes out the other, but I can read or see something on it as it goes past. Like I'm actually looking at a piece of paper. That happens a lot at the investigations when somebody's giving me their name or whatever. It's on that paper that I see. It's not like other people who see it in front of them. It's like in my head, but I see it.
Oh, you sound like you got like a computer chip in your head that works just for the paranormal.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, have you ever done any other investigations before with other Ghostbuster groups or paranormal groups of any kind, or is it just something that you've done on your own? And how did you go about doing your investigating?
I've never been with another team, but ever since I was younger, I would hang out with friends and we'd go certain scary places that people said were haunted and see if we could find out anything. Sometimes I even go by myself.
It must be like therapy.
It is. I don't know. I'm comfortable around it. It doesn't...
Are you one of those people that frequents cemeteries?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah, well, I love to go into cemeteries. Yeah. I mean, I find them very peaceful, and I thought the first time that I went into one at night would freak me out, but it was just, well, aside from the fact that it was the ideal setting, right? The temperature and the moon was out, so that even made it more relaxing and appropriate, and it was just a really good experience, and from that point on, I was fine. So, and as you know, our team member, Deb Zielinski, she rides her bicycle in the cemetery at night, so
yeah, she does.
So I guess it must be a thing, Yeah, well, I know that people come from all different backgrounds too that have these gifts such as yours with the 5 senses, and they'll be paranormal investigators by night and something else during the day. Now, I do remember you saying that you went to school for criminal and social justice to be a forensic detective, which is a far cry from being a paranormal investigator. But I'm sure that the things that you learned probably help with your investigating.
Yeah, some of it does, as far as like location, things that happen there.
What to look for, uncovering evidence.
Yeah.
Is it sort of relatable?
It can be, yeah. I mean, we didn't go so far into the depths of the forensic detective as far as I made it, but a lot of what I learned does help me with places and things going on to know whether it's paranormal or if it's something from, something that happened there.
So do you mean that you didn't finish going to school for it?
I have 1 year left.
1 year
graduate.
left. Oh my goodness. So what do you do for a living now?
I am a school bus driver.
Oh, well, that must be fun.
It is. I love my kids.
Did you have school-age kids or high school kids?
I have from kindergarten to high school.
Oh, okay. So you have the whole spectrum there. I'm in kindergarten, so I can relate to having the kids around all the time. It's fun.
They're good.
Yeah, they are. Especially when they get to know you and recognize you, and when you see them outside of school, it's even more fun.
Yeah.
Like I'll be in the supermarket and I'll see, and I go, "Hi, Mrs. Wagner."
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I definitely didn't think it would be a job that I would be doing, though.
How long have you been doing that now?
4 years.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's something I enjoy.
Oh, that's cool. I've been doing the kindergarten aid now for 14.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Definitely have to like it for that long.
Yeah. If they had moved me into another spot, I don't think I could have handled it. I just like being with kindergarten.
Yeah.
But I was a children's party clown for over 30 years.
Really?
Yeah, so...
I had no idea.
Yeah. Somebody just recently phoned me up and said, oh, would you come and be Penny Whistle, the clown, for my child's birthday party? You did mine. And I'm like, oh my God, that really aged me. I did your party and now you want me to do your kids? But I retired from clowning about 3 years ago. You know, my eyesight's going, and when you're doing face painting and you got to wear glasses and you can't see what you're doing. Because I did face painting and balloon sculpting, and I was a musical interactive clown, so I brought the parachute and we played games. And I do it with my kindergarten kids. I bring all that stuff in, but to do it for somebody's party, I just can't handle that anymore, you know.
I love the younger.
But you like my play on name, Penny Whistle is what I called, but it was a derivative of Pennywise, Stephen King's bad version of the clown. Penny Whistle is the good version, so everyone gets a kick out of that when I tell them that. All right, well, let's go back to our investigation talking. Okay. You like to use old school methods, which is primarily what we do as Lady Ghostbusters. We're really not into too many of those fancy gadgets because everybody's a sensitive or a medium or a psychic, and they rely on their own abilities as opposed to some. So, and I think that's great. I really do. Using the old school methods of investigating and spirit communication. What does that mean for you exactly? I mean, I know you said you have the 5 senses. Mm-hmm. What else do you use? And just explain it a little bit.
I have used a pendulum. I have dowsing rods also. And I use a recorder. Just kind of plain normal things that my senses will help what I'm doing with my senses and give me...
Help you along the way?
Yeah, like show that I'm on the right path with what I'm doing when I ask questions.
When you're figuring it out. Well, what's the pendulum exactly?
It is a crystal or stone on the end of a chain, and you hang it from your finger and you ask questions and it will move in certain directions to answer your question.
From what I've been told, when you're getting a pendulum for yourself, you have to allow it to pick you. That a pendulum is a very personal thing. So if I were to say, hey, can I use your pendulum? You really don't want that.
Right.
Because a pendulum is so personal for the person who owns it. And so I've also been told that the pendulum answers yes or no questions, right?
Yes.
And it's the person who owns that pendulum decides whether the back and forth is a yes or no, or the circle is a yes or no.
Right. Yeah, when you get it, you learn yours does.
What speaks to you.
Yeah, not everybody's is going to be the same.
Right. So when you're at an investigation and you're getting ready to use this pendulum, you're going to speak to the spirit, right?
Yes.
And you're going to explain to them so they know when answering a question how to respond using the pendulum.
I usually just ask, can you show me what yes is? Can you show me what no is?
Oh, okay.
And then they do it. They'll move it themselves to let you know.
Oh, I see. Well, that's interesting. That's the first time I ever heard that. And now you said dowsing rods. Mm-hmm. I know dowsing rods are very similar to the pendulum when a person goes to own them.
Right.
The dowsing rod is something that you need to find you, pick you out. Like when I got my set, they were purple, and purple's my favorite color. Yeah. So I knew that those were going to be the ones for me. So what do the dowsing rods do exactly?
Is it similar? They were originally made to detect water, the energy from the water. So it detects your yes and no answers. The energy that the spirit uses will make them, they'll make it answer yes, which is crossing, or wide open for no.
So that's kind of like sort of along the same lines of a pendulum.
Yeah. It's the energy that uses to move for the movement.
What I've noticed is when we go on an investigation, everybody brings all of their stuff.
Yes.
And takes it out and explains it all. Not so much for the people that are the homeowners or the building owners that are there, more so for the spirits for direction. And whatever is easiest for the spirit to use is where we find the most activity at that time, whether it be the pendulum, whether it be the dowsing rods, just so they're able to respond to us however they want to respond.
Right. Some spirits can have more energy that they can use something that's harder to move or harder to make come on. Some don't have enough, so they use the easier ones, depending on their passing and the personality of the person is what they choose to use.
Does the length of time that they've been deceased have anything to do with it?
I haven't noticed that. I do notice that the ones who have recently passed don't seem to have as much power to be able to communicate as ones that have been here a little longer.
Oh, I see. You also mentioned a recorder. Audio recorder, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
And what's all about that?
You can do EVPs with that, which is electronic voice phenomena. And you ask a question and you're recording and you give it a second and you allow them to answer. And then you can play back and sometimes you hear them speaking to you and answering you.
I imagine there would be a lot of footage to cover at the end of a night to listen to. When do you find the time to listen to all that?
There definitely is a lot. Anytime I'm home and I'm just sitting there not doing much, I put the headphones in, turn the TV off, and listen to the whole audio because I like it to be quiet so I can hear everything.
Recently, on the investigations that we've been on, have you gotten any audio? Like, we went to a location on Mudtown Road recently. Have you been able to listen to any of that to see if you got anything on it?
I didn't get anything there, but a previous one on Mozart Street.
Mm-hmm.
We got a few audio from the basement there.
Oh, okay. You want to share with what was said?
What I got was a name, Ivan. And then we were talking about how the woman said that there was paint on the floor and a pentacle and then hello written next to it in a different colored paint. She thought maybe something was going on with the children that had lived in the house previously. And when we asked the gentleman what was there, and he said voodoo or juju, and it was real clear. And we kept going back and listening to it over and over again. We couldn't believe we got it. So we're wondering if maybe the kids were dabbling in some stuff in the basement and it made him mad.
Well, you just mentioned juju, and I just talked to Lady Ghostbuster team member Laurel on the phone yesterday because she and Brittany Iwanski, another one of our team members, went back to that location on Mozart Avenue that you were just talking about as a follow-up for the lady because she really wanted to know how she can deal with the activity in her home, which, audience out there, turned out that really a lot of what was going on in the house was emotionally charged by the homeowner. And she's had previous groups come into her home and they've all told her there's nothing going on in your house, but they didn't want to tell her that it was her. Yeah. That she was creating a lot of this energy. Now, she does have a portal, apparently, in the basement where that crack was, but a lot of what's going on has to do with her. And she needed to hear that. So Laurel's pretty straightforward with her and said, she was very thankful to have someone tell her that this is what you need to do. So she gave her direction and told her what her next steps to close that portal up downstairs in the basement and fix the energy that she's creating from continuing. But Laurel ended up using the same word in our conversation, juju, in reference to Mozart Avenue. And you know me, I don't believe in coincidences. Yeah. And the word juju is not a common word.
No, not many people use that.
For you to say that you got the juju on the audio and Laurel, who was just there finishing up with the woman from that location, using the word juju to describe, that's not a coincidence.
No, and it's the newer, younger kids don't even use that. Right. So it wouldn't have anything to do with those kids that lived in that home.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. The audio we were just talking about, I know that Brittany Iwanski is very skeptical and she likes to debunk stuff before she actually believes it. So, and I think you've even said to me that if an audio does not come through really clear, then you don't accept it as an audio find. Right. That you really have to hear what you're listening to legitimately as opposed to just guessing and saying, well, I think they're saying this.
Yeah, because it could be anything. It could be saying anything. And you want straight up answers. That way you can answer the people's questions.
It's the same with looking at a photograph of an apparition. I mean, we can say, what do you see? And somebody will say, well, I think I see this, or I think I see that. If somebody has to think about what they see, then it can't be anything. You have to be able to say, oh my God, with definitive answer, I see a woman in a white dress, or for it to be a legitimate find. And that goes to the same with the audio, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and it's very cool when you do get a really good EVP.
It is.
I remember the first time we did, Brittany and I were jumping up and down doing a dance because it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It was just the coolest thing. And now you have that proof to go and share with the homeowner.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the times, if it's a deceased loved one that came through, you're all sitting there crying because
they recognize the voice.
Yeah, they recognize the voice. It's so cool. Really, really wonderful. So I know you didn't mention K2, but do you use a K2 ever?
No, I don't have one that I use.
No. Isn't the K2 the little gadget with the light on it? Oh, okay. I thought you did.
No, I've not used. I mean, we've used them on our investigations, but I don't personally have one that I take with me to use.
Oh, okay. And any particular reason why you choose not to?
I had bought one, and sometime in a move, I lost the back to it, so I never.
You never replaced it.
No, I wasn't going to put tape on it, so I just kind of left it.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Well, out of the investigations that we've done together so far, did you have one that was your favorite?
I have to say that the last one we did was my favorite, when their family member came through.
Yeah, we were all crying.
Yes, that was very emotional.
Well, to explain to the audience that's listening in, we got a call from a young girl, college age, whose family was experiencing activity in their home in Lafayette, New Jersey. And she wondered if we would arrange to come by for an investigation to see if we could decipher what was going on. And when we got there, they did mention to us that there were discarded tombstones on their property. Now, when you hear that right away, your first inclination is, oh my gosh, it's definitely going to have something to do with them tombstones. You know, the husband took Brittany and Tara around the property to show them where the tombstones originated from, to see if maybe that was where the people were buried. And then there was speculation that the tombstones were actually on the property where the house was built. So then we were wondering whether they were built on top of these buried bodies. So we were going into it like a poltergeist story, sort of thinking that's what we were going to come to. And then as the night progressed, we realized and found out who it was. And it ended up being the man who owned the home. The young girl's father had a brother who had passed away at a young age. Yeah. And it was him all along. Yeah. And it just came together so perfectly. And it was right under their nose the entire time. And they just didn't get it. But with everything that we were getting, from the pendulum to the, what else were we using that night? Oh, the dowsing rods?
The dowsing rods. For me, it was seeing him in the basement. And there was something about his eyes that just...
That's right.
Made me... something different about him because they were so big.
Like doe eyes.
Yeah.
A little bit slanted, but doughy.
And I asked them if they had a picture of the gentleman I saw, if it was him. And they brought a picture up. And immediately, as soon as you look at the picture, you can see the eyes.
Right. And you were like, yep, I believe that it was him. So they gave us his name and we asked, is this you? And it answered yes. Yep. And then one thing led to another. And then stuff was coming out. Oh my gosh, the woman of the house was hearing music. Yep. But it wasn't, oh, I heard rock and roll music or I heard country music. You're going to know the difference. And she explained she was hearing bluegrass music. And ironically enough, her daughter had recently taken out a CD from their cabinet where this gentleman who was deceased performed. He was in a bluegrass band, and she had copied it and was taking it off to college with her. And that was the deceased brothers.
And she'd been hearing it for a while. So he's been trying to tell her for a long time that it was him. The same with her mother. That's the music that she was listening to. She was like, why didn't we ever think of it? Well, it probably because he's been gone for a really long time, and you were headed in a different direction in your mind. Oh, yeah, because, of course, if you found gravestones on your property, that'd be like your first thing. Like, you got to figure out what that is. That's got to be what's here.
Exactly. So, yes, I have to agree with you. That really was a great experience. And they were in tears. And, the clincher was, it was the day before the anniversary of his death.
Oh, yes.
Which is not a coincidence either.
No, I don't think that.
The girl contacted me. I think she was connected to me by him for sure, because, you know me, I try to get the booking right away so we to fit in as many as we can when the calendar is available, and that date was available for her. And it happened to be the day before the anniversary of his death. So it was definitely not coincidence and meant to happen, and the family got out of it exactly what they had expected.
I completely agree. It was probably a shock to them, but yeah, it was definitely a really good investigation so far.
For the audience, we were hugging at the end.
Not a dry eye in the house.
No, and they were just so thrilled. It was definitely a good experience. Well, I know you have some pretty interesting stories about things that have happened to you over the years. I remember you even mentioning to me that you saw a Bigfoot on High Point Mountain, Stokes State Forest in Sussex County off of Deckertown Road. What happened? How did that go?
I was doing my school run, and I was headed home. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I come past the camp and start going around the last corner, and this thing walked across the road, like ran in front of me, and I slowed down to see, and as I slowed down, I could look behind the tree, and he was peeking out, looking at me.
When was this?
This was probably August of last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like when school was just starting back up. So August, September probably of last year.
Interesting, because I have a very recent story from a local individual here too, but it took place, you're talking 2019, so we still got stories happening. Oh, yeah. Are you sure it wasn't a bear? there?
I'm positive. It walked on 2 legs. To me, it looked like just a hairy man, really hairy man, longer arms, and when it walked, it had a certain stride that was just a little different than a person. And then when I got behind it, it was a light brown with almost like a blonde tips to its fur. And he was tall. He was probably 7 feet, maybe even taller. And I saw him clear as day from the back, too. And then as I was going up, I was going to turn around, and I looked back, and he was gone.
But you said at first you saw him peeking through the trees?
He ran across the road and then hid behind a tree and was looking around it as I was driving up, I guess trying to figure out what I was.
Oh, too bad you didn't whip out your camera.
We're not allowed to have our phones on us, otherwise that would have been right on out.
Boy,
Yeah.
oh boy. I do know author Andre Verge, well, A.H. Verge is his pen name. He had experiences with Bigfoot also in the area, and I believe it was a summer ago as well. He and his wife and family were driving on 206, Route 206, on the Pennsylvania side, though, because 206 does run through the New Jersey side as well. And they were on a long stretch of 206 that is pretty dense and doesn't have much to it. And it was in the day, and his wife had spotted it, and she said, Andre, oh my gosh, look what. So they pulled over and get out of the car, and they were all whipping out the cameras and taking pictures of this Bigfoot walking in the field.
Wow.
Yeah, we're still getting sightings of Bigfoot around here to this day. I mean, there are stories that I've written about in book 1. In fact, when I was writing Sussex County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, I was going to write it without the Other Strange Phenomena part of it. And then I kept getting so many calls and emails from people about Bigfoot. I'm thinking, I have to add Other Strange Phenomena. So I did, so that I could put the Bigfoot chapter in there. And it ended up being one of the largest chapters in the book because the stories just kept coming in. And they go back as far as like the 50s and 60s, 70s, and it continues on up to present. So it's pretty interesting if you are a believer because it's kind of hard to hear all this stuff and not believe.
Yeah. Well, especially if you see something that's unexplainable.
All right, so you saw it, but did you believe in Bigfoot before you saw him?
Yeah, I always have.
You have?
Yeah.
I have too. I mean, I think if we're here, there's got to be some other stuff going on that we don't know about. And I believe in UFOs too. I've had my own experiences. Do have people that call you crazy, but you're not crazy until it happens to you that you could feel like, oh my gosh, now I understand what they're talking about. You know, I know I'm not crazy, but until it happens to somebody else. Yeah, exactly. Do you have any other cool ghost stories that you'd like to share?
I have a few, I guess.
What about the farmer in Hampton?
Yeah, growing up, I've always heard a tale about an old farmer that had gotten killed in Hampton, and nobody that I know of has ever seen anything. So they're like, I don't believe it, whatever. So one night I was driving home to Pennsylvania, and I'm coming up the hill, and it's dark out, and it's kind of foggy, and I see this man walking across the road in front of me from one of the fields to the other, and he had overalls on, the hat on, everything, and I'm like, could that be him? And I kept thinking to myself, am I seeing something? I mean, is this what I'm seeing? And clear as day, he was right in front of my truck walking across the field and going to the other one.
All right, Tara, you say it was a guy that was crossing.
Yes.
All right, how do you know he was a ghost?
I could see through him.
Ah, okay, he was see-through-y.
It was a whitish color, like you could definitely see the outline of him, but he was to where I could see something on the other side of him.
Translucent.
Yeah, it was
Now, you
wild.
said, how did he die originally? What was the story?
As far as I know, he was gorged by a bull in the one field and drug himself across to the other one trying to get home to the house.
And this happened around what time?
A long time ago. I want to say 40s probably.
And he was wearing overalls. I would just love to see something like that.
It was definitely something.
Was this a day, at night?
It was at night. It was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, okay. And you said it was like white. So was that almost like a glimmer? Like it was...
No, it wasn't like the shiny. It was more like fog, but it wasn't as dense as fog.
I see.
Yeah, and you could see the complete outline, perfect outline and everything of them.
I'm going to have to drive over in Hampton at night of these days just to see if I can find Farmer Dan or whatever his name is. I remember you saying you were a pretty wild kid, though. You used to hang out. Because in Sussex County, it's not much for us to do growing up. Kids got to find their way around and do stuff. And I know that you said you did a lot of hanging out in different places.
Yeah, I kind of myself a lot.
I remember you saying something about Platts Road.
That's a very active area in Sussex County, yeah.
Now, Platts Road is in Newton, is it?
Yes, it's behind the college.
Oh, okay, Sussex County Community College.
Down the road by the college. There's been a lot of things happening down that road for a very long time. I do remember one time going down there, and me and my friends had come up from Tennessee, and they were going to help me move, and they were like, well, what can we do, tonight? And I'm like, oh, let's go down, hang out on Platts and see what we can find. So we pulled into the driveway of this house that was there that is no longer there now, and we were just having a conversation, and I happened to look out the window and look up into this window of the house, and I could see something moving. And I kept saying to them, do you see something moving? And nobody saw anything at first. And then every time it swung, it seemed like it was getting towards the front of whatever it was. So I kept watching and watching and watching, and And finally, it was a man hanging from the ceiling, staring right down at us. It was very creepy, very scary. And when I said something, my friends looked up and actually saw him too. So that was
So what did you guys do?
We decided to go in the house and try to find the man and cut him down if he was up there. And we went in and we searched the whole house. We finally found the room that we were looking at, and there was no one in the house, but there was a huge blood stain on the floor right where he would have been hanging. And there was no one on the property, no one in the house. It was just us.
Wow.
It was definitely
an abandoned house. It was.
Yeah.
So what did you think? He was maybe like just a transient living in there or something?
Yeah, I
or
figured
you
it
didn't
was
even
just,
brush your mind. Maybe.
I don't think it did at that time. I mean, now that I think about it, I probably was worried that it was somebody that maybe we knew, or someone had done something to someone.
Right.
That's why we ran in.
I see.
Yeah, it was
that's creepy. And you said the house is not there anymore, huh?
No, it's gotten torn down right after that. Yeah.
Poo-poo.
That would have been a nice place to go.
I'm sure. We would be on that. Sure. Well, you said Platts Road is very active.
Yes.
So what else has happened there?
I have seen UFOs above the old house on the corner that's not there anymore either. Everything is by the one-lane bridge. But we were sitting in a field and just happened to look up and these lights were moving. And we watched it for a little while, and it was weird that one light would take off and come back. Then another light would go a different direction and come back. There was 3 of them, and it kept doing it for, I think we watched it for a half hour or so, maybe a little longer, and then it just disappeared. So it didn't fly off. It just, the lights went off and disappeared. So that was a very odd thing for down that area.
Lady Ghostbuster Kristen Becker has said that she saw a UFO when she was younger on Swartzwood Road.
Yeah, which is the other side of the lake of where I was.
So they're right adjacent to one another.
Oh, yeah.
So
not many miles in between from one road to the other. So
and recently, a coworker of mine, Kathy Hicks, she had a video she took on her property, but that's here in Wantage, of a video that she saw. She ended up sending me the video. She said it's happened before. They just never caught it on camera. This time they got the camera out and were able to get the footage of, which was very cool. So that's a lot of that going on around now too.
Yeah. There's definitely some odd things in this area, Sussex County especially.
Yeah. I
think because it's so old. The area and the ground and everything here has been here a long time.
Well, in doing research for my books, especially when I was doing the Bigfoot story, of course, I just mentioned to you about the other strange phenomena category coming into play. We also got stories about UFOs, and so I ended up doing research and found out that there was a case in Lake Owassa, I believe it was in the 50s or the 60s, I don't remember exactly when, but that an unidentified flying object crashed into Lake Owassa, and the family on the farm were flabbergasted about what happened. Houses were far and fewer between each other back then, and so the family ran out to go and find what was going on, and the police came, and the next thing you know, the military was there, and they were taking this object out of the lake and cueing the family on how to proceed.
Oh boy.
About speaking to others about. So I made connections with a woman whose, I believe she said it was her uncle, who was a child on the farm at the time, and to his dying day was trying to make people aware of what happened on his farm that day. But my connection that I'm trying to make here is that when I was doing the research about that UFO crash, it was shortly thereafter that people started getting sightings of Bigfoot, and they continued to happen more and more frequently after that crash. So a lot of people were speculating as to whether the crash had something to do with Bigfoot, and if Bigfoot might be an alien. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there, but that's what they're saying. Could it be a possibility?
Yeah.
You never know.
No, you never know.
You never know. So you said Platts Road is very active. Any more stories to share about?
Yeah, there's one time we were down there and we're sitting in the car and it was on the side of the lake. Like if we opened our door, we would have fell in the lake. And it was way early in the morning. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we're sitting there, we're just chatting. We have the music on. We're hanging out in the car talking. And these little sparkles, this is the only way I can explain it, was like sparkles coming out of the lake to my right. And we watched for a while and it did it for a little while and the sparkles kind of got bigger and higher. And then I noticed a woman come up out of the lake in white and she walked right across the top and these sparkles were coming out as she was walking. She walked right across the lake and straight through the middle of our car. We could actually see her sitting in the car when she walked through.
Oh.
And she went across the road and then into the marsh part of the road there and disappeared.
Creepy.
So that's a story I'd like to figure out.
Who she was and what that was about.
But it was clear as day. Beautiful woman in this beautiful gown just walking.
gown from what era would you say? Could you pinpoint it? Like, some people say, I saw a woman in a bride's gown, a bridal gown.
Yeah,
like
no, it wasn't like a bride. I want to say maybe like really fancy nightgown. It was real long and flowy and, had different layers to it, but it was just beautiful and it was amazing, like just what she looked like. And she just kept going. Like she didn't even acknowledge us or anything sitting in the car, but she went right through the middle of the car.
I know this is going to be just a story, audience, because it's the author and me coming out, but I have read things similar to what you've just said, and it reminds me of a story about, back in the day, let's say the 1800s, for argument's sake, right? If a woman ended up pregnant out of wedlock, that was devastation for them, and it was ruin, actually. And a lot of the time, the women would take their lives. And what was quite common is they didn't know how to swim, so they would walk themselves in as far as they could into a lake and drown themselves.
That could possibly be, because it could be around that time that dress was.
You talk a nightgown, there's always the possibility that that was what happened. Like I said, it's just a story. It's the author coming out of me, but I have heard that when I was a kid growing up, we used to watch In Search of, and there were a couple of different shows that talked about like ghosts and stuff like that. And I remember that being one of the story. They actually had a picture of a woman in black and white from back then, and she was in the photograph, and her story was her boyfriend and she, consummated their relationship. She ended up pregnant, and then he ended up leaving her. And so she ended up taking her life by drowning herself in the lake. So, maybe that's the story behind your ghost story.
We should probably go down and try to figure it out one day.
I would love to do that, for sure. Any other plot stories that you can think of?
Not too many more down there.
No.
My mom had one on where the tracks go over the road. Used to be the old railroad tracks for Sussex County. She was parking with her boyfriend when she was a teenager.
They were parking.
Yeah, and she got out to use the restroom, and her boyfriend stayed.
Restroom, audience, meant the field behind the car.
Back then, you used what you could. But her boyfriend stayed at the back of the car, just to keep an eye on her, but to make sure that nobody came up or, if she yelled, he would be right there to get her. And she made sure she walked far away from him so that he couldn't tell what she was doing. She said she noticed a light coming towards her, and she kept looking, and she was trying to hurry because she was afraid it was somebody walking over or that guy coming up there, her boyfriend. And she said as it got closer, she noticed it was a guy holding a lantern, and it just kept walking towards her. And she hurried up, tried to get her, running towards where her boyfriend was. And she said he got close enough to where she could see that he had no head.
Oh.
And he looked like somebody who'd worked on the railroad line was holding the lantern. She figured maybe he was out looking for his head.
Railroad accident.
Yeah, so.
Incidentally, listeners out there, Sussex County was a hopping place back in the day. They had way more going on for them in the 1800s than we got going. I mean, we had 3 separate railroad stations that ran through and brought in people from the cities and business, and the town did not want for anything. It had absolutely everything. Now we pretty much have nothing, but I'm sure there were plenty of railway accidents.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure over how many years it was there,
Well, think about when we went to Rockport in Warren County, and it was the site of a tragic train wreck where I believe it was 50 or so German immigrants going back to Germany were killed when the train derailed in a major storm, and they were all burned to death.
Yeah, from the steam engine.
Yeah, from the steam engine. So tragic. And now they have a stone there which memorializes all the lives of those people. But I knew that if we went there, we were going to get some good footage, because it just can't be a place of such tragedy and not have anything happen. So the first time the Lady Ghostbusters went to the location for an investigation, we got a lot. In fact, we have the crossing. You know how when you go over a railroad crossing, they have the bells and the lights that go off to tell the car to stop because there's a train coming. We had them go off, and the first time it went off, we all jumped and ran off of the tracks thinking a train was coming, and nothing came. And then when it continued throughout the night that we were there, in response to our questions, we realized somebody was answering our requests, and it led to us finding out it was one of the railroad men that was in the train wreck, and he chooses to stay there because he wants to keep everybody safe so that no other trains wreck, which I thought was kind of cool. But the light going off like that really was so fascinating, and I wanted to get back over there to have it happen again. So we went back again very recently. Tara was there, and Deb was there, and Margaret Miller was there, and Andrew Knapp was there.
Yep.
And and I thought it was a great investigation too. Although we did not get the crossing to go off as we did the first time around, you guys are able to see spirits.
Yes, yep.
Saw the railwaymen and actually got them on film.
Right, and the detector was going off when Deborah was asking questions.
Right.
It was answering her, so we got a lot of that, which was good.
Did Margaret Miller have her SLS camera with her?
Yes, she did.
An SLS camera is a camera that, when it senses energy, will create like a stick figure in the area the energy is coming from. So if I were to stand in front of the SLS camera, obviously you would see me as a stick figure on the camera because I'm standing in front. But if there's nothing in front of you and you see a stick figure, then you're knowing that it's a paranormal
somebody's definitely
catch.
There with you.
Right. Margaret is really big on her SLS camera.
Yeah.
She takes it with her everywhere she goes when we go on an investigation. So she had it that night. Do you recall if she picked up the railwaymen on her camera? Because I don't know.
I don't believe she did. Not on that one. I think I was the only one who noticed them at first, and then Deb had seen them, and
you started taking pictures.
Yeah, we tried running down there, and they were gone by the time we got there. It's
at one point, you saw one,
right,
and then at another point, it was four.
They were all walking towards us, and then the guy that was single by himself, he was walking back and forth across the track down almost by the next intersection.
And Deb was saying to me that it was almost as if the four kept walking towards us, but never got any closer.
Right.
It was like they were walking, but they never got any closer.
You could see movement. I mean, you could see them actually picking their legs up walking.
Right.
And that's how I knew they were coming that way, not going away from us, because I could see them walking.
Right.
Yeah, and we ran down there, and they were gone.
They were gone. Just a very cool place to visit, though, for sure. I'm so glad there was a young college student that somehow, I guess when he was in college, he had to write a story about something, and came upon the fact that in the town that he lived in, which happened to be Rockport, this tragic accident took place he never even knew about. And he was compelled to get to the bottom of it and tell the story. And because of his efforts, had this beautiful memorial erected on the site. And it really is a peaceful, beautiful place. They have this gorgeous tree with the memorial stone underneath it. And then you have the original train pole and wires on it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
That site is going to actually be the cover of my Warren County Hauntings and Other Strange Phenomena, which comes out this winter. I just loved the picture so much. Yeah, that was cool. I like that one. It was
a good one, yeah.
Well, I know that you haven't just lived in Sussex County. I know that you grew up here, right?
Yeah, born and raised
But you've moved around over the years.
Yes.
And you did mention something about being in, was it Tennessee?
Yes.
And you've had stuff happen to you in Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. We're at Tennessee. I've Pennsylvania. Everywhere I've lived, like I said, I have something happen. But we've had some strange experiences in cemeteries in Tennessee.
Oh, tell me. Please do.
Me and a group of my friends decided to use a Ouija board in a cemetery to contact people.
Just to you listeners out there, do not use Ouija boards.
I would not suggest it now.
No. They're Juju.
Yeah, we were young and dumb teenagers, so, but we used it, and we kept hearing in the background a little kid saying, Mama. And I kept saying, Kevin, do you hear that? And he's, yeah, I do. And I'm like, I think we need to go. Because I just didn't feel right. I was like, I think we need to go. So we pack up everything, we get in the car, we start going down the road, and we're in two different cars, because it was like 6 of us, I think, went. And I kept looking over at Kevin's car, and I could see something moving, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So I sped up, got next to him, and it was the little boy in the back seat of the car, drawing something on the window. I could see him clear as day, and I kept trying to get Kevin's attention to let him know that there was somebody in his car.
Poor baby.
And he kept saying, there's nobody in my car. I said, yes, there is. There's somebody in your back seat. So we finally pulled over in a gas station. He got out and saw him and went running into the store.
Now, if I might interject, you were at the cemetery and you were playing with the Ouija board. And did you see their gravestones there?
I didn't see specifically theirs. I didn't have a name for any of them as we were there. I just heard the little boy.
Okay. So how did you find out the story behind the haunting?
We went back and looked around and asked some people in the town what had happened. And there was a car accident, and he had lost his mother in the car accident. He lived, made it to the hospital, and passed away at the hospital.
Oh,
so
the
they
boy
were separated.
did.
Yeah, so they were separated at the accident. So that's why he was looking for his mom.
Oh, okay.
So I guess he hadn't found her yet on the other side.
Maybe he just didn't know he was gone. I mean, it's so young.
There's a possibility of that.
To go through that.
Yeah.
Probably didn't even know he had passed.
He didn't live long. I think they said it was only a couple hours after the accident.
So sad.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's bad, especially when they're kids.
So he saw the kid in the back of the car, and he didn't want to drive his car.
Right.
And so you took over his car?
Yes, I had to drive his car to his house.
All right.
And on the way there, I kept saying that I didn't want Kevin to allow anybody in his home because I didn't feel comfortable. It felt weird to me. And I told Kevin, I said, you need to let him know. You need to set boundaries. Let him know that he's not allowed in. He goes, okay, no problem. I will. Well, we went in. Next thing I know, I keep seeing out his shade, this little boy peeking in through the shades at us in the living room. And I got uncomfortable and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to bed. So I went in, went to the bed and went to sleep. And I don't know how long after, but I felt something pushing on the bed all the way around. And I woke up and asked Kevin if he had told it that it was not allowed in the home. And he said, no, I didn't. I wanted him to come in. So I'm guessing that was the child playing around the bed.
He wanted to come and wake you up. Yeah, bouncing on the bed.
Yep.
Oh, boy, that's so funny.
That was an odd experience
I'm
from there.
Sure. Sheesh. Thank you to your friend.
Yeah.
Nice friend.
Oh, yeah. Great one.
So how did you guys end up getting the little boy out finally?
I left, so I let him
So the little boy might still be there with him.
It could possibly. I mean, it was a long time ago, but I don't know what he did. It was his property. He's the one who has to tell him, not me.
Oh, my.
Yeah, that was on him.
Yeah. And that was in Tennessee?
Yes.
Any other stories in Tennessee that you can think of?
My house that I owned in Tennessee, I've never ever been like really scared to go anywhere. But for some reason, my hallway made me really nervous. And like I'd walk through it as fast as I could. A few times I saw an Indian standing in the corner just watching me. Mm-hmm. And I figured, well, maybe it's from the land there because we were in the middle of nowhere where my house is. And I saw him all the time. Like every time I go through the hallway, he seemed to be there. And I just never felt comfortable in that house with that going on. But nobody else seemed to notice it.
You said Pennsylvania, too. You've had some stuff going on.
Yeah.
What part of Pennsylvania, by the way?
Scott Run was one of the major places. We rented a house there after my mom and dad split up. And it was a big house. So it was me, my sister, my brother, my sister's husband, and my mom. And I had the whole attic of the house, which was really big. It had 2 walk-in closets on the things that had like the little doors that you can go in, like crawl spaces. Every day, a little boy and a little girl would come out of there and play with me all day. And then it would become dark out and I'd get scared and run downstairs and go stay in my mom's room.
So you play with them all day?
All day. But nighttime, yeah, something bothered me up there. But this went on the whole time we lived there. The kids were there and I told everybody about them and they had like period clothing on and I kept asking them why they don't change. I said, you can wear my clothes if you need to.
Right.
And they never said anything to me about it. I just accepted them for them, being them and that was it.
Do you think that they knew that they were dead?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, they seemed like just 2 normal kids playing.
See, for me, that touches a place in my heart. Those kids, like the little boy in Tennessee and these 2 kids, you almost wish you could go back and find them and help them cross over because if it is a case that they don't know they're gone, they're just going to be there every day. And I hear stories like this time and time again from my followers who share their stories with me. Oh, I grew up in a house and I played with this kid and I hear it all the time, and I think with those children it's probably more likely they just don't know.
Right.
That's the sad part of it.
They are, maybe they understand it more, like an adult being found rather than a child being in the home.
Well, more often than not, when we are out on an investigation and we make contact with the spirit, we'll ask, do they know that they've passed and are they okay with being where they are? And more often than not, they know they've passed and they want to be there.
Yeah, they just want people to know they're there.
Right. And there are occasions that we do find someone that does not know that they've passed, and so we have the sad job of explaining it to them, and then we give them the option of leaving to be with their loved ones on the other side or staying behind if that's what they prefer.
Right.
So,
choice,
but with kids, you just, you have that big question mark about whether it's,
it's sad.
It really is.
Gotta miss their family.
I'm sure. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you living the same life over and over again, and you're gone and you grew up, and
and then there's
you're
a
not
new
there
person in the home.
Yeah, they must wonder, I would guess.
Yeah, it's gotta be confusing.
Very sad. Well, I know you also, you were talking earlier about your present apartment where you live in the country club. That is active, but you said that there are other apartments in the complex area that have activity as well, right?
Oh, yeah. Not just ones that I've lived in. I've heard of other stories from other people that live there. The old apartment I lived in, there was so much noise on upstairs, and it was going on for a while, and I finally got tired of it, and I went upstairs and knocked on the door to ask the neighbor to keep it down because I was trying to sleep, and I'm banging on the door, and I could see this woman sitting on his couch, and she's just staring at me with her mouth open like she's scared or shocked that I'm knocking on the door, but she never answered the door. So I went back downstairs and I called the landlord, and I said, is so-and-so home? And he's like, no, he's on vacation. There shouldn't be anybody there. So I'm like, well, there's a woman sitting in his living room and she's not answering the door. So he came over and went in to make sure that nobody was there, like broke into the apartment, and he couldn't find anybody. So we spoke to the tenant tenant, and he said that he has no one watching his house and that there shouldn't have been anybody there while he was gone. So that was a...
That only leaves one last...
Right, yeah, there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
But she wasn't, like, opaque. She just looked like a woman sitting on the couch. Of course, her skin was a little fairer than a normal person, but I didn't think anything about it at the time until afterwards. That was like, well, nobody's there, but there's all that noise.
Right.
So something's going on.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
And you said you've heard other people telling you stories?
Yeah, just here and there of just different things that happened. Recently, my landlord was telling me about something that he said there's a lot of things that go on that he can't explain in a lot of his apartments. And then our
How did you guys get into that conversation?
Well,
did you tell him you were a paranormal?
Yeah, I gave him my card, and we were talking about how it was going, and he was asking me how I got into it and all that stuff. But then our maintenance guy was standing in the driveway at the same time speaking to the landlord. And he's telling me about all these places that he's had in there that have had things going on. And he used to live in my apartment. So I was like, well, Howie, did anything go on when you were here? He's like, no, I don't remember anything happening there. I was like, are you sure? And he's like, no, not there. That place was okay. And they told me that
that's you.
Yeah, they told me they would tell me some stories the next time we got together about other places. So hopefully I can get them written down.
Oh, maybe we can even get into them for investigations.
Yeah,
knock on somebody's door. I think your apartment is haunted. That's what I do. When I hear a story from somebody, I will go to the location with one of my cards and I'll knock on the door and try and get somebody and tell them I think your place is haunted. Because you don't want to come out and say, I know it's haunted. I think it is. And then I'll leave a card. A lot of the time I'll leave my business card and I'll write on it, I think your house is haunted with my information, and hope that they'll reach out to me. Because, it's a good way to get a story. And I know social media is also a great platform because when I'm prepping for another book, I'll usually go on the local pages and I'll put on there, hey guys, I'm getting ready to write this next book. Thanks for your support with the past ones I've written, but I'm looking for stories on such and such. And then I'll have like a list of 10 locations that I've already got stories for so that I can add to it, because it always makes for a better chapter if you have more than one story. I just fell into this one story when I was getting a pedicure at my nail place, and the tech was working on my toes and my daughter was with me and we were just chit-chatting. That mommy and me kind of stuff, catching up. And of course, we always talk about paranormal activity because it's like 90% of my life. So she's asking me stuff about what's going on. And of course, the nail technician's ear is perking up. She's listening. And then she finally looks up and she goes, you do that stuff?
And people are so shocked.
I know. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the woman who wrote the Sussex County Haunting series. She's going, oh my God, I didn't know that was you. She goes, boy, do I have a story for you. So it always leads from one to another. And so she proceeds to tell me about this house that she and her boyfriend rented that was crazy haunted and crazy bad haunted. Like it was one of those houses that emotionally attaches itself to the people living there and causes havoc. And so she tells me this whole story and I'm like, can I write it? And she's like, sure. So now I've got the location. And so of course I've got to go look at this. So I do my whole thing. I drive by, take pictures. I stop and leave my business card because apparently the house is being sold and it's under contract right now. So they have workers there. There's a gentleman who lives in the apartment in the barn. Like the barn was renovated to have an apartment above it. And he's been living there forever. He was the one to say that you don't know how many people have lived in this house that have left and they can't ever keep anybody in there. The owners moved out because they didn't want to live in there and they started renting it to people who didn't last more than 6 months. So I had this nail tech story and wanted to see if I could find any others. So when I made that list up in the social media that I was just talking to you about, this location was one of the ones I was looking for stories for. And boom, did I get a hit. And it's this guy telling me he's freaked out. You could tell in the comment on the line, he was freaked out just from the way he acted. I'm like, oh my God. So when I finally talked to him, he's like, oh my God, my girlfriend and I, same story as the text. So I'm thinking, is this her boyfriend? So the only difference that I had detected was the nail tech and her boyfriend moved out of the house into another place together and are still together. They were great before they moved into the house. The relationship sucked while they were there. They moved out into another house and they're great again. With this man that I spoke to, their relationship was great before they moved in. It sucked while they lived there and they broke up and they're separated. So that's how I figured, well, this is not the same person. But I asked him anyway. I said, your girlfriend's not so-and-so. And he goes, no. So that's how I knew that they were two totally separate stories, but
similar
to the T. Of course, they each had different things that happened that were all crazy to talk about. But yeah, the house definitely is crazy, mean, haunted. So
that's wild.
I know.
Yeah, I had mentioned something to my neighbor. The apartment this lady moved into had been empty for like 5 years after a woman was found in it. I think it was 2 weeks she was in there and nobody knew she was there. But they've renovated it twice, which now in 5 years you're renovating a place twice. That's a little odd.
Yeah.
But they did. I don't know if the mark on the wall is still there and it keeps coming through or what. I'm not sure. But I asked the woman when she moved in, I said, does anything weird go on in your apartment? She's like, why? I was like, well, I was just wondering. She goes, you're talking about the woman, aren't you? And I went, what? She goes, yeah, the lady in the apartment that me and my son see.
Oh.
So we started talking. I told her I was with the team, and she said that her son is sensitive. Mm-hmm. He's on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. And she said for some reason they flock to him. They love him. Anywhere they've been, like, he picks up on it.
Wow.
And she said she's absolutely into it. And I said, are you worried about living there? And she's like, no, not at all. We just have an extra roommate. And she left it at that. Because I told her, I said, if she needed us to, we would come and check it out, or, tell us what happened.
Right.
Because I live right next to it. I was there when the lady was there, and everything happened. And
how old is her son?
21 or 22. Okay. He's young. And then she's a nurse part-time, so she's home a lot. So she interacts with her while she's home. She said,
she's acknowledging her. Good, well, that's a good thing. I mean, when we went to Sophie G's attic in Lafayette, the shops at Lafayette, if you recall, the couple that owns the building were having activity. Now, obviously, if you're owning an antique shop, you're bringing things in with you all the time. And I know that the local antique shops in Sussex are customarily saging their stock because they do have activity if they don't. So they just do it as an automatic thing. Yeah. But the gentleman, Corey, from Sophie G's, doesn't sage anything. So they've got a lot of stuff going on in that building. And I do remember he and his wife were wondering why it was happening. Was there something that they needed to find out? Did they want to tell them something? And there was a screwdriver that always went missing and showed up in different places. And as it turned out, we discovered as a team that the young boy named Jacob, 13 years old, who died in a farming accident, was intrigued by this screwdriver. Whether it was his or not, I don't know, or if it was just something that he liked. So we asked Jacob, did he want Corey to keep the screwdriver, and he said he did. So Corey now keeps the screwdriver in the back of the counter, and every morning when they come in, they say, good morning, Jacob. When they leave at night, they say goodbye. They said they feel like they have an adopted son.
Yeah, I think it's great when people do that. I mean, I feel bad when people are scared or they're worried they don't want to be in that place. Yeah. It's better stories when you hear the people say that they're comfortable, and if they want to be here, we'll leave them and let them be here. Yeah. Well,
they were there before you were most of the time in a location, and not necessarily with an antique shop, but in general. You're invading their space, and sometimes they don't understand that, and you just have to make them aware of it. Right. But if the two lives don't collide and can work in sync with one another, it's just a great thing. Yeah. Why not? They just want to be acknowledged and be a part of something, so why the heck not? And a lot of people frowned upon this kind of stuff back in the day, but not so much anymore. People are more openly receptive to. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tera, for talking to me today and for sharing your stories and background with the rest of the world. And to you, the public, you can follow Tera on her Instagram, Lady Ghostbuster Tera. Find out more about her and the Lady Ghostbuster adventures at my website, authoreleanorwagner.com, where you'll find video updates and photographs from every investigation. And thank you, paranormal enthusiasts, for tuning in today. I hope you'll come back again. Remember to tap into your own gifts. Everyone has them. And in the meantime, make sure you're creeping it real.